Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's Khan, aka Khan Puts You On, and today we are doing an album review, man. As you can see in the title, this album is Danny Whacko This Light of Mine. I really like this album. I'm gonna start with critiques. As always, like, I don't want my critiques to come off like you have to do this. This is just me creatively, like, what I'm thinking as I'm listening to the album and just kind of my initial thoughts. I listened to this album like 3 or 4 times. I thought it was a really easy listen. So if you want something that you can just have in the background, like, I think this album is perfect for that. It does a great job of keeping consistent sound. Very well thought out message behind the album as well. I thought it sounded very good. So I think the two biggest weaknesses on this project, and they're not even that big. I don't even think they impact the album that much. But one is the mixing and two is the composition. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But for the mixing, there was one song specifically where I couldn't understand what you were saying. Second half of Footprints, I couldn't hear you. I was listening to my car the first time, and so I was like, okay, maybe it's my car speakers. But then I went to my headphones, and I think the second half of that is just like, it's just hard to hear you, to be honest. Like, I think your vocal volume, like, I'd go back and look at that. I think your vocal volume is like too low on that song. In the second half specifically, the first half is decent. I don't think the vocal mixing is that bad to where it like affected my listening. There was a few songs where I thought the vocal mixing could have been better. Yeah, so I think there was a couple songs where the vocal mixing was just a little inconsistent. I think Alone, that song, between those 3 verses, I think the vocal mixing was odd. Especially with Seek Ultra, his just did not seem full. He wasn't super loud like as the other voices were. But again, not that bad. Like, I still understood his verse and stuff. I think Footprints definitely had the like hardest listening vocal mixing for me, but I don't think it was like too bad. The other mixing issue that I thought was there was a lot of the production is like, it's not panned at all. It's very mono. I think a lot of the mixing is very mono, but I think your vocal mixing or like effects are really good, and a lot of the parts on this album, like the vocal mixing is solid. Especially with effects, reverb, delay, panning the vocals is really good. But I think what you're lacking here is the production mixing. It's very mono. Hi-hats, everything is very much in the middle, where I think you could have had some of the drums to the right, maybe some of the sound to the left, like in terms of just like piano, strings, like whatever you have there. Like, I think some of those could have sat in the left or right. But your production was pretty solid. So I will say that I did really like how much depth you had in your production. I just think it could have been shined upon better had you pan them. That way they each get their spotlight rather than just being like muddled up in the middle. So that's it for mixing, I think, pretty much. I think the other weakness was composition. So I'm gonna have a picture here, but it's just like, you probably saw it in English class, like it's like a rising composition. There's a rising action, climax, and then it like goes down. A lot of your songs, I think, just like flat. The beat is the same. Not a lot of beat switches. I think there was a couple here and there, but nothing too crazy. So like when I'm listening to this, it's very flat. Like, it's just very, like, not a lot is changing. And I personally like a lot of musical composition. You don't necessarily need it. I think there's a lot of rappers that don't have a ton. But if you listen to, like, any of the top rappers or, like, producers, like, you hear a lot of beat switching and beat composition changes. Whether that can be taking out an instrument and then having it all, like, come at the end or something. Like, you can have something like that, too. Like, that's what I really like about, like, a lot of Kendrick's music. A lot of Frank Ocean's music, as the musical composition is always really good. There's always some change, always something happening. I like am not like it's not monotone in that way. But I don't think for you specifically it was a horrible thing. Like, I don't think it like made me dislike the album or anything. I very much like this album. It just didn't make me want to go like, I wasn't expecting anything throughout this album. Like, I heard the beat initially and I was like, okay, this is gonna be the beat for the rest of the song. Was kind of like my view. That's it for my negatives. Now, as for the strengths of this album, I think there's a lot. There was a lot of songs that I really liked. I think, again, like I said earlier, like, your production was very like it was very dynamic in the sense of like you had different like strings, you had horns. The drum breaks were really good on here. Like, I think you did that very, very well, and I'd like to see that in another project. Like I said, your background vocals, your backing vocals, and different vocal effects you had were really good. I think especially with like the choruses and stuff, like those were panned very, very well. I love those. Those were like 10 out of 10 for me. I think your biggest strength on this album for sure was your choruses. I think like your hooks and stuff, those were insane. Very catchy, had really good flow, and the vocal effects that you did have on there were usually very solid because you had a lot of like choruses and backing, which let me know it was the hook slash chorus. So I really like that. I really like chorus specifically that I would pay attention to is Hero Part 2. I think that was really good. I really like that song. Yeah, I really like the background vocals on Dance to Depression too. That was really good. I think my favorite song on this project was Humble Thoughts. I think the way you mentioned doing whatever you can, sacrificing whoever you have to, or like whatever you have to get to where you're trying to go. I related to that, so I was like hearing that, I was like, damn, like this is hitting hard. And then he was over there talking about like holding his grandma's hand, talking about like I'm gonna get this money, and she just said okay. That was crazy. That was a really sad moment. I think that song you could take a lot from, and it would be very different from person to person. Like when I heard that grandma line, and she just responded, "Okay," like you can take a lot of different meaning away from that line alone without having his context in there, like his own personal experience. I think another strength that you had on this album was that your sound was consistent, and what you were talking about was very consistent. It was a very personable album. I think I'm glad you didn't stray away from that on this album, especially with how dark the cover is and how this light of all of that like kind of talks about looking inward and figuring out what you want. Kind of, that's what I got from that. Really thought that was a strength on this album for sure. I really liked it. I would say if you like rappers like Earl Sweatshirt, Mavi, like this is an album for you for sure. It's kind of a chill, dark, grimace type of vibe with good, like great beats. I think there's a lot of positives from this album. I don't think the negatives were that bad, but that's pretty much it for my review. To rank this, I think I'd give this album a 6 Danny Wackos out of 10. I think there's a lot to improve here, but I think overall it was better than average, and I think it's still a solid listen. I think you should check it out if you want another underground artist to like. Danny Wacko's definitely has a lot of potential and is definitely on the come up, so I would check him out for sure. Because Kayhan puts you on, don't be too late. Yeah. So as always, man, if y'all like the content, man, hit me with a like and subscribe and comment some more stuff I should review, react to. And for all my other platforms, I have an Instagram, I got a TikTok, I got the YouTube, obviously, and I got a Facebook. Facebook don't matter. I wouldn't even check my Facebook. I'm not doing nothing on there. But my TikTok, I'm at like 815, 20 followers. Instagram, I just had a video blow up. That's a new update. I got like 200,000 views or 170 or something like that. It was crazy. But I'm getting off topic. As always, if y'all like the content, man, hit me with a like and subscribe. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Be safe. Be smooth, man.